The last two times we had events that we had to cancel for in the church locally. I know it's not something that you should suffer, but we'll try to catch up. A quick warning. The covenant with Abraham is a very key covenant in all the study of the Old Testament. I would say this would require from us a great attention. If you want to understand the heart of God's salvation history, it will be the covenant with Abraham. And those three promises that was upgraded to three covenants and later on fulfilled in three other covenants are you can say the summit and the summary of all God's covenants. I had a question last time and I want to make sure that we answer this. Why would God make a covenant with Abraham after making a covenant with Noah? Simplistically speaking, you say, okay, God has a covenant with humanity, he will take care of them. Why would we need a covenant with Abraham? If you study the details of the covenant with Abraham, you might get an understanding of why, get an answer. Why Abraham? So I want to start with that and see if we get any answers. So those three promises, they were upgraded into covenants. The promises given in chapter 12, and then they were upgraded in 15, 17, and 21, or 22. 22. They might have the answer to this question, why? What's the point that God calls Abraham, give him promises, then upgrade those promises, and then fulfill those promises? And we still talk about Abraham until today. Any idea? Any suggestions? Here's this drawing, and I like it from, this is from a book made by Scott Hahn, Catholic theologian, a book called A Father Who Keeps His Promises, God's Covenant, Love, and Scriptures. It's published by St. Anthony Messenger Press. So this diagram here is beautiful. So it starts with the promises, moves to the covenants, and then the fulfillments. The promises is, first one is nation, to be a nation with people with land. The covenants in chapter 15 of Genesis, and the fulfillment is Mosaic covenant. To be a nation with land, it's in the Mosaic covenant, fulfilled. The promise to give him a name, a dynasty, Genesis 17 is the upgrading to a covenant, and then the fulfillment is in the Davidic covenant. Worldwide blessing, Genesis 22 is upgraded to a covenant when Isaac was offered, and it's actually fulfilled in the new covenant with Christ. So this is the summary of all what we were talking about. Okay. Now,
So does God want to make a covenant with Abraham so that can be the way of Christ, the world?
he's preparing for Christ coming, yes, of course, as a fulfillment too.
The world of blessing.
Yeah, very true. And all the three, those three is actually going to be fulfilled in Christ too, in the new covenant, ultimately. The Davidic covenant, we hear about Jesus being the son of David, who will establish the throne of David forever. and that the Mosaic covenant for the land is fulfilled for us as we look forward to heaven. And look, book to the Hebrews would say, talk about it. So when Abraham responded with faith in God, God counted Abraham's faith in him as righteousness. The three promises listed above were upgraded to three covenants with Abraham and were fulfilled in the last three covenants God made with the church. Okay, so that's what we looked into last time, I remember, if you remember. The next step was purification, a purification step, like in the covenant steps. And the purification step is, in the case of Abraham, was circumcision. A circumcised male is pure. Uncircumcised is defiled, impure. But what was the commandments? Remember that. Go back to the steps of the covenant. Remember the steps of the covenant? Can somebody give me the first step? Steps of the covenant. I want to go back to that. The calling, right? Go back to Noah. We started by talking about the covenant in here. So steps. We looked at this in Noah, right? The same steps of the covenant are with Noah are found in covenant with Abraham, right? We have that. You go up. Here it is. So what are the steps of the covenant with Noah? We looked into those. What's the first step? Faith as a response to God's calling, trust in God. The second step was cleansing. Talked about this, and remember I told you when you look into a covenant of marriage, there was this bridal shower. And then the third is promises and commandments. Promises from the husband and commandments to the wife. Promises from God and commandments for the people of God. And then oath over a sacrifice. So, and somebody was very confused, and I was very surprised by that. They confused oath with a promise. And we said, this is a bit of confusion. Oath is not a promise, right? The promise is you say, I'm going to do something. When you put an oath on top of it, you put yourself under a curse, good. And then a sign. A marriage, you would have a ring that this person already committed to someone. They're not anymore free to have a covenant with anybody. So we're going to look into Abraham also, and Abraham's situation, and see the same thing. There's a first step is a calling with a response. And the three promises that God gave, he said, I'll give you the land, I'll make a great nation. He takes out from his home, from his family, from his country, and go to a place that's he doesn't know anything about. So the response of Abraham was trusting God. He tells him, take your son and offer your son to me. He takes his son, offer his son to God. And so that the response of Abraham was very powerful, and God considered it for him for righteousness. What's the second step after the calling and the response? Is purification. So what would be the purification in the case of Abraham? Is circumcision. That's what it is. Next step was purification. In the covenant of Abraham, this step was circumcision, although there was no list of commandments. I'm looking into the next one, which would be the commandments and the promises. Now, where is the commandments that God gave to Abraham? Where is the commandments? Where are the commandments? I want to show you something here that you might. Okay, here's an answer. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I admire your responses because it gives me a little bit of hope. So at least somebody's listening, okay? Here is Genesis 15. No, I want to go 19. Genesis 19, Bible Gateway. I want to show you about something about commandments, what God is looking for in commandments. Look at this carefully, because we said in any covenant, there has to be commandments and promises. So, oh, that's the one before, 18. When God visited Abraham and he made the promise for Isaac to come. Remember that beginning of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at this carefully. The question is I have. Again, so those of you who are thinking, we're distracted for a little bit. Where are the commandments in the covenant with Abraham? That's a very simple question. Where are the commandments? Distracted them again, trying to get their attention. Where are the commandments? Because every covenant have to have those elements: the calling and the response, the cleansing, commandments and promises, the sacrifice and the sign, right? So we talked about the promises, and then we talked about, about the calling and the response. We talked about the cleansing, and we are talking about now, where are the commandments? We have the promises, but we don't have the commandments. Where are the commandments? Let's see. To keep the way of the Lord. Where is that? What is the way of the Lord? That's good, Sarah. Okay, let's read this together. Then the men rose from there after the ate, and they were given the promise about Isaac from there and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to send them on the way. And look at this. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham? What am I doing? Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. He's saying, I'm not going to keep secrets from my friend. He calls Abraham his friend. For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord. That's what Sarah had written for us in her the chat. I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. So he knows Abraham that he deliver the commandments of God. So what are the commandments of God? What's the way of the Lord? Where did he get it from? We don't hear that God has given Abraham special commandments. Anyone? Anyone? We've been studying that far. I think you should trust by now. I would not ask you a question that I've never given you the answer. Yes, David.
So like the life of holiness.
What is that? How is it described? In the Old Testament, if you don't describe it, it doesn't exist.
Oh,
If it's not spelled out in letters and words, it doesn't exist. I'll be very disappointed. We talked about this. Anyone online? Where is that? What is the expectation from Abraham here? What is that? To do righteousness and justice. So what is the way of the Lord? There has to be certain, like, so for the Israelites, they had the Ten Commandments, but this is going to come later. There is a whole law that Moses is going to give. You might say, yeah, you're about to say something good. Laws given to Noah. Yes. Yes. Oh boy. No, she's asking a question that you all have in your minds. She's just speaking it loudly. Abraham got the commandments through his ancestors. Very true. And where is the commandments given? Here in Noah. Noah, go ahead back. I gone too far. Let's go Control F. I'll go back to Noah and we'll find that there might not be exactly the same way we say it. So he got it from his ancestors, but here it is. The covenant with Noah was a grand type covenant. Although the promise did not depend on following the commandments, yet divine commandments were given to the human family. The promise was to protect the family of Noah from a second annihilation by another flood, to maintain the cycle of life and seasons. The covenant with Noah binds all humans that ever lived after the flood till the end of time. In the Talmud, it is taught that descendants of Noah, that is universal humanity, are obligated by 7 commandments to what? Establish course of justice. That means they have to seek justice to properly find the real murderer, for example. To refrain from blaspheming the God of Israel. Never say anything bad about God. To as well as from idolatry, worshiping idols. To refrain from sexual perversion. To refrain from murder, bloodshed, and robbery, and not to eat meat cut from a living animal. These were inspired by the account of the flood. That means, and we studied this, if you don't remember, you were not paying attention. We studied this actually, that the events of the flood included all that.
I don't see where those 7 commandments are written in the Old Testament.
That's a very good and bad question at the same time, because we explained how did they come.
I know, that's not what I'm asking. I don't like, but you said, where are they written? You said where?
No, the Talmud actually bring them out as a tradition, not as a biblical reference. So it's against what happened before the flood, that the flood came, because God said there was a lot of violence and there's a lot of sexual immorality, a lot of what we see today in our culture, violence and sexual perversion. So those 7 commandments is what everybody was supposed to be abiding by, but it seems like it's never spelled out directly. It is actually, so I'm going to ask Joya and Valera to give me what I said now.
About 7 in the Bible.
Number 7?
Like they weren't explicitly written in like what like the signs that God gave. Well, like the whole reason that the flood was there is because the people were doing that stuff. So the fact that Noah was righteous is because he didn't do that stuff.
Okay, he
So-
kept it.
Yeah. So those
You have two minds and 2 hearts at the same time. You're speaking.
I was paying attention last time we were in class.
I see. Okay. All right.
Next time we should ask Valera.
So please don't talk when I'm talking.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is, the Jews were given hundreds of commandments, but the 7 was given to Noah and his descendants. So they say, according to the Talmud, Gentiles who observe the 7 commandments of the descendants of Noah can meet with God's full approval. The Talmud assume a widespread knowledge of these laws among the descendants of Noah. And basically, they form the nucleus of all the laws of the nations, what's considered evil. So Noah had given this to his descendants, and the descendants given to them descendants. So I had an argument with one seminarian one time. He was very angry. I said that. I said Abraham was not, Abraham knew God through his family. But not all his family kept the laws of God. Not all of them kept the knowledge of God, but he specifically, that's how he became saint. Like example today, you might have a family that's very worldly family, and one member of the family is a God-loving, become a saint. That means that the rest of the family doesn't know God? No, they know God, but they're not really into it. Does that make sense? But his family was a family that is actually knew God, and they kept the laws of God. So the seminarian saying no, that Joshua in his book said that your fathers worshipped other gods, and I brought you out of the land of the Chaldeans to the promised land so that I can have you know me. And I said, well, yes, they were there serving other gods, but they are not really worshiping in the meaning that they actually believe them. Anyway, so those are the commandments that God is hinting in this passage. He's hinting this. He's hinting it when he said, for I know him in order that he may command his children, his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord and to do righteousness and justice. This is exactly what the laws of Noah is about, right? It's about justice, right? And righteousness means they are not supposed to uh, give pain to animals for their own desires, or to pervert their own body and the bodies of people around them. Anyway, okay. So we go back, and I want to have us go over the next part, which is the upgrading of the promises. Let me write you a few questions, and then we're going to answer those. Here's a question for us. I want to start with that. You write it down. Please read, because last time you tried to do it without reading and it didn't work. So first one is, what was the point of God asking the Abraham to sacrifice his son? That's your first question. Why would God do that? Give me a good answer. I don't want the kindergarten answer. Number two. What was the oath in the on the third covenant with Abraham? How the, all right, let me just say this better. What elements of the life, the story of Abraham can be spiritual lessons? Here you go. 3 questions, need answers. Do we have the, do they have the document?
Yes.
Okay. Open the document, try to answer those 3.
Are we gonna answer the first question you asked us, which is why did God even make the covenant?
Well, that's what we're gonna do this. Once we answer those questions, you will figure it out, actually. You can read the document, and it would answer those ones for you if you want. You can talk about it together.
I don't even see. Is it 6? No, it's actually 6. Okay, so.
But it is not in the grouping plan.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So it's.
Emily,
Emily,
give up.
okay, I know. You can even know which chapter we got. Hey, we're gonna ask you right. I answered it right. Oh. I'm good. Reading session. I just see new things. God did a couple. We're already failing. No, it's already. No, I didn't want to use that. What do I do this in sunset? Of something, so. What do I use? No, I didn't send them any brochure. Because I don't know. So bad, I took all sign cards. Or I have come, like, I don't need coffee.
Read and understand the document, you will get the answer. You don't really understand it, you're gonna come up with your answer, which will be wrong. Somebody's reading to you?
see?
Somebody's reading to you?
No. That's no joke. Then you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
But there is trying to limit.
Where's your phone, Anna?
We're sharing.
I see.
What we advise.
Because if I answer it, then how we. Okay, that's a good answer. Because it doesn't make the word looks. It's better than the same way. Hold it and then you can vote. Did you find it? I did actually. Yeah, I'm reading it. Yeah, because I actually showed the document. The document. That's actually not hard, that's the document. This is chapter 6. Well, I've been on now, so much chapter 6. And then it's right there was the confusing. They said I don't have to. The guy, he wants to. Oh, this is bad. Oh, wait, like it's not bad. Where will I put it? It's like. Massive. Actually. And then anything should over. I woke up in very bad way.
Yeah, that was the last one. Isaac on the mountain.
Redo that.
You do what?
Over God to God.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he's right.
But in this interpreted both ways.
What is the point of God asking Aaron to offer Isaac?
Guys,
Your mom would get accident.
This is a better.
Wait, I really don't understand it.
I don't know, say, I wanna finish the other one, but actually, so many things happened in the house. Like, the Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed, and actually got born after that. That Melchizedek, and then, you know, we got like word against the nations, Tower of Babel. So a lot of kind of things happening.
Should we find a reading?
Yeah. Oh, it's Google Class.
It's, you scroll down, but I want under the. Where's? Under the.
Yeah, it's that whole thing.
By myself, I have stolen, says the Lord. So,
Nice.
it could be a fun thing.
I'll give you 15 minutes. 15 minutes from now.
Not best.
30 seconds. All right, we're back, everybody. Now, what is the answer to the first question? What was the point of God asking Abraham to sacrifice his son? I want us to see if the groups got something out of this. I had an answer on the chat, and it said, although Darnell didn't finish, God did that to see if Abraham, if have faith in God, and if he would do anything for God. Follow God's plan, even if you think it is not what you think is right. That's I think answering number 1 and 3. There's another one here. Isaac was the beloved son like Jesus to the father. On the altar, Abraham had offered to God all the descendants of Isaac, like Jesus. Who's that? Sarah. Like Jesus on the cross offered himself for all humanity. Abraham had to put faith in God that he will do his promises, and he could raise Isaac from the dead like Jesus. Isaac on the altar like Jesus on the altar, flesh and blood. Finally, to test his faith, love, and obedience. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her, and I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be from her. In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Spiritual lessons, have faith in God, even though we are going through difficult situations. Trust God will turn everything for good, and to obey God. Macrina. Abraham was willing to give up his son because of his faith and trusted that God knows that he is doing. The point was to fulfill the faith part of the covenant. Okay. All right, so I have 2 points here. One of them, it says that was a test of faith. And then Sarah added one more thing, which is a gift or an offering of Abraham to the people. I didn't have anybody answer the second question. Okay, anybody from here? What did you say? Raise your voice. Okay, tell us what you say. Now, the first question we were talking about. What was the point of God asking Abraham to offer Isaac?
So basically, Isaac represents Israel because the descendants come from Isaac, and because Isaac comes from Abraham. And so he was willing to give up Israel for God's faith. Like he put his faith in God, like when he was about to sacrifice Israel, but he didn't.
Okay, so you're saying that Abraham is offering Israel. Why Israel?
Because from Isaac comes the descendants, and the descendants is what makes up Israel.
So there are other people from Isaac. Why Israel? That's a good. So the first group says, so we have two choices here. Either was it only just purely a test of faith to Abraham. God didn't know what Abraham would do, and he wanted to see what Abraham would do, so he gave him a test, and Abraham succeeded. That's your first assumption. The second assumption is that there's something more to this than meets the eye. That God wanted something from Abraham that only Abraham can give. And I think Sarah and the first group we have here, the Johns and the Yusufs, said it is the gift of Abraham to God of Israel. And I'm asking them, why Israel? Okay.
They are the one who
How did they become the people of God?
Because God promised Abraham a great nation,
Yes,
and Israel is that.
but Isaac didn't have only one son, he had two sons. You know their names?
God promised that the nation would be through Isaac.
But again, Isaac had two sons, not one. Why not the other group? The other son, what's the other son name? Huh? Esau. Esau and Jacob, right? These are the twin children of Isaac. So why not Esau? Why Israel? Jacob.
Because why Esau?
Why not Esau?
Because Jacob got the first bird, the first right for the bird, because he took it from his brother.
What else? It should have been Esau too. Let's go forward. Next group. But we didn't answer. What was I'm going to go to the second question very quickly. David, you have something to say? For the first question, what was the point of God asking? Because that would answer to us the question, why a covenant with Abraham? Okay, well. I guess most people don't read the document. They're just answering from their own. I would not write you questions that you can answer from your own mind. There would be no point at all. So when you answer me from your own mind, I can assure you you'll be wrong, because that assessment is designed so that you cannot answer it without reading. The whole point of it. Go ahead, David. I'm just looking at the chat. Go ahead.
Faith in the resurrection, that's what I would want.
You didn't read the document.
It's in the document.
Okay. The group, the ladies in the front.
So,
I would not ask you to give me citation, but at least let's go to the document and read it together, because I think that's what it is. What happened? Why is it lagging? Oh, it's here. All right, so let's go and look at reading this. We're looking at the third promise. And so the final upgrade and the most dramatic is the covenant of blessing atop Mount Moriah. In this covenant, God asked Abraham to offer his son as a sacrifice needed for this covenant. The first time Isaac was mentioned by name in Genesis chapter 17, in the middle of instructing Abraham about the covenant of circumcision. At that time, Abraham asked God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you," implying that he wished that the promises should be through Ishmael. God objected, "And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. King of peoples shall be from her. Talking about Sarah. When the time came for Abraham to let Ishmael and Hagar go, God told him, do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad of Ishmael, or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Isaac your seed shall be called. What God has promised him as a great nation, we should come from Isaac, not from Ishmael. God considered Isaac the only son of Abraham. Imagine. He didn't think of Ishmael at all. God did not consider Ishmael son of Abraham. Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love. A very great definition. Like, I want that son, the only son you have. The letter to the Hebrews recognized this last verse as a preparation for the ultimate sacrifice and covenant with Abraham. When the letter to the Hebrews in the New Testament says, by faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, again, only, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called. What does that mean in our common language? In whom your seed shall be called. That Abraham was called the father of nations. So who they are coming through? Abraham himself is not going to have nations brought up by Sarah, right? But there's going to be a link, that one link, which is Isaac. Isaac. Isaac is the source of all the great number that will come. Concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him as in a figurative sense. First, Abraham had to trust God in fulfilling his promise. Second, a promise of making him a great nation that would serve and bless other nations. So that nation that will come out of Abraham will bless and serve other nations. Second, serving them spiritually, of course. Second, that God will fulfill his promise through Isaac and not the other son. The ultimate test is when God asked Abraham to offer Isaac as a burnt offering on Mount Moriah. The only answer to that paradoxical situation is resurrection, first of all. Abraham, although never saw or heard of resurrection, he had to believe that God would raise Isaac after the offering to fulfill all the promises through him. The test of faith is not the whole reason, that's the point, is not the whole reason for the Holocaust. By placing Isaac, this is the point. If you want to highlight something, here it is. By placing Isaac on the altar with the intention of offering him to God. I heard them reading it. That's why I was very impressed. Abraham had offered to God all the descendants of Isaac because Isaac was the promised child that through him all the descendants that Abraham was called to have. If you offer Isaac, you're actually offering everybody that Isaac will have. So, and we talked about Isaac having two children, two twin brothers. Is Isaac and Jacob and Esau. Esau was the firstborn. What happened to Esau? He actually despised everything. He despised the law of God. He married two wives. He was a vicious man. He wanted to please himself. And he didn't really care much about the blessing or even what God would do in them. So he rejected the blessing. So who is left with us to carry on? Jacob. And for that reason, Jacob's name is changed in Israel. And for this reason, the people of God became the Israelites. So who gave them to God as the people of God? Who made them the people of God? In offering Isaac. So Isaac was offered. Now, everything that's Isaac's belongs to God because he was put on an altar. I always say this story for people to remember. Just remember that story. Ambawisa is a bishop from Al-Kush. What is that? Actually, he's a bishop of a big area in Upper Egypt. He's a good teacher, and he's a tough person to pray with. He would be picky, very picky, more picky than me, if you believe that. So he one time a priest was praying with him, and the priest had a watch. Do you know those watches that you hang with a chain? Old watches, usually made of gold, very expensive stuff. So he wanted to time himself in prayer. So he took his watch, put it on the altar, and he prayed. And the bishop is praying with him, and he saw him doing that. So he came after he finished, and Abuna sprinkled the water, put his hand out to get the watch. The bishop held his hand and said, "What are you doing, Abuna?" "I'm taking my watch." He said, "No, it's no longer your watch."
Said this is weird.
Why? Good. Why? Once you put something on the altar, it's God's. You're done. It's an offering. It's actually very shameful, very sad, very wrong to take it back. So what is Abraham doing really? So from one point, he's been tested in his faith in God. From the other point, he is offering his life, his descendants, everyone who's going to come from Isaac. From that point on, this is important for us. Remember, why is it important for us? So forget about Isaac and Abraham and everybody else. Why is it important to us? Think about it. Who had to be offered to God that represents all of us? Yes. Jesus had linked himself to us, and we become his in our baptism. And whenever you go to baptize, you're part of Christ. You are in him. So when Jesus offered himself to God the Father, what's he offering? He's offering me and you and everybody, right? That's it. We become in him. So all the descendants of Isaac were in Isaac as Abraham is offering them to God. Imagine he's offering to God a whole group of people. In Christ, by our baptism, we were in Christ baptized so that we can, when Jesus offered himself on the cross, we are offered in him. So you and I, we were offered to God. We are the people of God. We're getting this? Does that make sense to you? You understand it? Where I get this from? Let me show it to you, okay? The document is one. Very good. I just told you because I'm not interested in your opinions. We're here to study, which means you're going to learn something you don't know. To think about it with your own, from your own mind and your background, it means you're not learning anything. Let me go with you to this. I want you to learn this from here. Listen. Here. This is something for us to look at, okay? 1 Corinthians 12. Here. 12. $13. Okay, listen. Here, read this with me. For what by one I'm waiting until you get done. It's very impolite for me to talk when you're talking. I have to respect you. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and have all been made to drink into one Spirit. For in fact, the body is not one member, but many. What body we are baptized into? What body? Because he's going to go down and say, now you are the body of Christ and members individually of one another. We are the body of Christ. So in Galatians, I want to go to Galatians 2, and you're going to hear the same thing. Galatians 3, and it's 3:17. I wrote it wrong. So 3G, capital G. Look at this. Where is it? As many as have been baptized unto Christ have put on Christ. Here, actually 27. For as many as have of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There are neither Jew or Greek, there is neither slave or free, there is neither male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. He's linking us to Abraham. Why? Because through one person, which is Isaac, God accepted from Abraham the seed of Abraham. And through Jesus, who is also a son of Abraham, we're re-offered to God as Gentiles. So if Isaac, offering to God, made the people of God the people of God, through the offering of the Son of God, Jesus, we are made the seed of Abraham. We are made also the people of God. You get that? Understand it? Make sense? Okay. So that's the first point. Only the believing in the believing in the resurrection is another point. So God swore by himself over Isaac, Macrina. Good job. The second question is, who did he swear by? He swore by himself. Why? Why God swore by himself? You see, this is actually something that it moves me every time I see it. And I want to show you this with, like we see it with one another. So that's the oath in different ways. So in Genesis 15, what did God do as an oath in the first covenant? So God said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old that's a female, I think it's a female oxen, 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all these to him, cut them in two, down the middle, and placed each piece opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds in two. And when the vultures came down on the carcasses, Abraham drove them away. He kept hushing them away. Now, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and behold, horror and a great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abraham, know certainly that your descendants, etc. And then he's going to, and it came to pass when the sun sat down and was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch that passed between those pieces. Imagine animals cut in half, make like a road, and sat together, one half against the other, and then a flaming torch and a burning torch and a smoking oven passing through them. What's that? What's the smoke and the flame? That from Exodus, you know that. Who is that? That's God. The representation of God in Exodus was by night a torch of light, and by the day smoke. Right? That's how God guided them. So why would God appearing in smoke and fire? That's how he descended in Mount Sinai later. Go between the pieces. What is the symbol? What does it mean? This actually passed between those pieces. It is. What's he saying? Exactly. So God himself is actually making a promise to Abraham with an oath over cut pieces to say, that's God himself saying to Abraham, may I be cut in pieces like this if I don't do what I told you to do. This is what the kings used to do. Imagine, who are we? Who is Abraham? Man, like this is too much even to think about it. That God himself will come and say, I curse myself if I don't make your promises, if the promises I made you will not happen. That's too much, right? Too much. This time, God did not want any animals. The body of Isaac was on the altar, and God in chapter 22 is going to swear by himself, which is again more crazy than the last one too. He said, verse 16, by myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Withheld means you kept him back. You gave him to me. So God took him actually, even if Isaac is alive. Now here I'm going to ask you about, do you know of any living sacrifices? Where do that term living sacrifice? Living sacrifice. What does it mean? Sacrifice, but yet alive. Give me examples. Living sacrifices. Something that been offered to God is still alive. Completely offered. Living sacrifices.
So when you say living, you mean even after they offer it?
Yes.
it's still alive?
Yes. That's what I mean by living sacrifice. Think about examples of living sacrifices. They're not one, more than one. I want to move your rusty brains with the Bible a little bit. It's very important that we keep our Bibles active. I mean, our brains active. Huh? Huh? Yes.
So the worldwide blessing, like the nation, like was blessed, his descendants and all of
That's my ultimate question. That's the final question I'm going to ask. How the world is blessed.
Is that why the 12 tribes are saved? Like they're like guaranteed to go to heaven?
No guarantee for them to go to heaven, by the way.
What was it? Again, it wasn't a guarantee, but
You're starting with the wrong premise. They were not guaranteed to go to heaven. They were guaranteed a promised land, and that's it.
Yeah.
it said those from the 12 tribes are saved.
That's another question. So we were going to talk about how they were dispersed in the whole world. For them to be saved, God has to bring the whole world because they're now everywhere.
Was that caused by the divided line? Was that caused by the divided line?
Yeah. Now let us ask you, did you find out anybody? Let me see from the, I have three. God swore by himself. That's a good job, Macrina. Covenant of grant, Sarah, our heart and prayer. Would monasticism be an example of living sacrifice? Yes, of course. Yes. Jesus is a living sacrifice. How do you explain it? Very good. Excellent. He is a living sacrifice. Because he himself, but still came back to life. That's why you see it in the book of Revelation, a lamb standing as if it was slain. Its throat is cut, but it stands. What else? A living sacrifice, yes. Elijah. Why Elijah? A living sacrifice is something you offer to God. You should be killing, cutting, but then they continue to live. And now you are all living sacrifices. In baptism, you actually offer to God. What else?
Isaac.
A living sacrifice. I'm talking about humans. Huh? Isaac is a living sacrifice. Yes, of course. What else?
The goat. The ram.
Ram was killed, by the way. He's not living anymore.
But it was living.
I'm talking about after living sacrifice means sacrifice and alive. There's tons of them. How about Samuel? His mother offered him, and he continued. Say Mary, of course. Who else? The three young men. You all said it. Very good. Okay. How about the three young men in the furnace? The three holy youth, right? Now, once you start thinking about it, this is whenever people give to God, give themselves to God completely, but yet they don't die. Most of them will die, but some of them will continue to live. Okay. In the lion's den, yes. So every time an offering of God is made and a person continue to live, would the disciples be an example? As an example, yes. If they were given, yeah, but they when they offered themselves as martyrs, they never came back. Came many times, but during those times he was a living sacrifice. Now let us move to the next one and the final one. What spiritual lessons? Let's go and look at that. What spiritual lessons we learn? Let's go and read this part. We offer our children to God in baptism, and your servants who so offer their children. We say that. We offer our children in baptism. This is a litany of baptism. And your servants who offer their children to you, accept them as a sweet aroma upon your holy ration altar in heaven through the service of your holy angels and archangels. In liturgy, we offer the body and the blood of the Lord to the Father and receive him in communion. God swore, who said bread and wine? Yeah, good job. God swore by himself offered Isaac to bless Abraham and to make him a blessing, thus sealing the final covenant with Abraham. And this covenant, God consecrated the Abrahamic line to be. And now, the final question that I want everybody to think about. What was the addition that the covenant with Abraham had made over Noah? Why we need a new covenant? Covenant with Noah, I'm going to not bring a flood again. So listen, let's read it together. In this covenant, God consecrated Abrahamic line, consecrated them, the line to be a chosen people. That's what God told him on chapter 19 of Genesis. I'm sorry, Exodus. He said, you will be for me a nation of priests. Okay, does that answer the question? What's the question again? See if somebody online actually got it. The question is, what is the benefit of the Abrahamic covenant over the Noahic covenant? What was added? In the Noah covenant, God said, I'm not going to bring a flood. I'm not annihilating humans by water again. I'm going to keep them. But what was the covenant with Abraham adding? Why would we need another covenant? I guess the questions never popped in your mind, so that's why it's used like, okay, let's just get this first. What are you talking about, Abuna? Let's get it first. If God made a covenant with Noah, why we need a covenant with Abraham? Because covenants is almost like this. Okay, listen to me. A man and woman got married, right? They got married in the church, and then after a year, the man said, "Okay, let's have another marriage." Exactly, right? So I want to say, I've been saying this all along. I said, think of covenant as marriage and adoption. Okay, so a couple got married in the church, and later on, a husband or a wife says, "Let's get another ceremony in the church," and you said, "What? What does that mean?" Right? So what is the point of God making another covenant with Abraham if he had made covenant with the humanity through Noah? I hope this moves you a little bit to think about it. What's the point?
Deeper love.
So a couple would express deeper love by going to church and having another ceremony?
Well, they do something called renewal of vows, right?
Yeah, but there's not a whole ceremony.
Yeah, I know.
They're thinking of something not nice. I can tell.
That's the new subscription.
You- That's better than somebody actually unsubscribe. That's much better than after 2 years of marriage, and he would click unsubscribe. They're awful. Okay.
So funny.
All right. Okay.
I can't believe it.
Calm down, John. Calm down. The seats you're sitting on is not sturdy, nor the tables. All right. So what is the point? Let's read. All right. Where did I go?
Happy birthday. Oh, you said happy belated birthday. Happy birthday. How old are you? Ooh.
Bible study.
Are you, that's a big, no?
Like 69 days.
No.
All right. In this covenant, God consecrated the Abrahamic line to be a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praise of him who called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light. This covenant is, listen, to guide, lead all the nations to God. The line of Abraham was to sanctify and bless humanity. They were priests. Can you find your way to heaven without priests? Absolutely not, because you're not going to have anybody to confess. You're not have anybody to pray for your liturgy. You're not going to have anybody to baptize. So you need priests to do what? To consecrate you to God. So the line of Abraham was actually chosen to do what? To consecrate the rest of the nations, to be the priests. You understand? So he had already, you don't understand this.
I just don't understand from your analogy about let's get married again. I don't really, Because when I think of it like that, it is really weird to me.
It is weird,
And I don't
but
think-
he is not actually, he's not saying that we are going to do a covenant like Noah. We're going to actually add another layer to that covenant, which is priesthood. We're going to consecrate this family of Abraham to be,
Yeah.
to be,
Holy nation,
to be
servants, priests.
priests. So in any group of people that belong to God, you need someone who is a priest. So this is the job of Abraham. Abraham line was to provide the nations with a priest, a king, and a prophet. These are very special jobs in humanity. So God is not actually repeating the covenant with Noah. He's actually adding one more layer, one more item, which is priesthood. That's what he said. A chosen people, royal priesthood. So that Abrahamic covenant was meant to serve the nations as priests,
Be like if a husband decided to have a kid.
like that. So that they have actually one more added layer to their covenant. Very good. I like that. That's a very good thinking. It's actually by going in that direction, he prepares so that those group of people, the Israelites, will become the place where Jesus comes from. So what, if you think about it, this is a good question, by the way. Did you listen to what he said? Say it again. So Yusuf is saying,
What about the covenant?
what about the covenant with Jesus or David? So let us ask this question. Did the Israelites really do a good job in being priests to the nations? Or did they felt themselves superior and better than everybody else and they should not actually respect anyone? How did they see the people? They saw the people as dogs and pigs, and they separated themselves from them. So very clearly that the Israelites had failed in what God had expected from them. And the people who study the biblical geography, they say, why this promised land? Why the land in Palestine?
In the center.
Between two great civilizations, Egypt and Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. So everybody coming because there was a trade route. Everybody coming from this civilization to this civilization to trade, they will have to pass here and they will hear about the Lord. He's giving them a method in the center of the world to be able to serve the world. But they were the priests. Did they succeed? Actually, they liked more the nations and the gods of the nations, and they were exiled many times, ended up actually not doing what God intended for them. So that's what Jesus came in the New Testament and said, you are the salt of the world. If the salt loses its saltness, what would it be? It's no good. It's no good. That you imagine salt that is actually has no taste. It doesn't have any saltness. It dissolves in water, so you can actually take it as a sand and build with it. It doesn't have anything to offer to the rest of the. So what are you going to do with it? Nothing. This is useless. Completely useless. So they were supposed to be the salt of the earth. They became useless to God, and that's why Christ came and he decided to choose 12 disciples as representatives of the 12 tribes, and he sent them out to the nations. That's the fulfillment. Think about it. Why would Jesus say, go to all the nations and preach to them and tell them everything I taught you? Why? A fulfillment of the promise given to Abraham.
So was the Christ come because the Israels failed, so
Not because God from the beginning knew they're not going to be able, but they were actually the way to prepare for the Messiah. He has to come out of them. Say Mary has to be a Jewish mother. The disciples have to be Jewish people. So even the first church is all Jewish. So this is not in vain. God has prepared for the full and the ultimate covenant by the Abrahamic covenant. But it was also a fulfillment of it. You see the picture? So the Abrahamic covenant was not to repeat what Noah had been given. It is actually to specifically focus on making the people of God by offering them priests. When you get a man, hopefully from you, you will be many. You get a man and say, we're going to consecrate this man and his wife to be the priest and the testimony of the church. What do? You're offering to God a human being. And they are going to taking themselves out of the life that everybody's living and live a life of more consecration, more dedication, more, you understand, more of everything. And those people are not for themselves. They're not a priest. No priest is for himself, no bishop is for himself. It's for the people. He doesn't, that's the whole point. So when Abraham is giving the people of God to God, he's actually making God take those people, consecrate them, and then through them he would actually serve. This is the whole point. Don't think of Abraham covenant as for him or for his family. It is for humanity. Got it? So that's very important point, and I want you to keep. The last page. Christ is the new Isaac, the seed of Abraham, that was truly offered to the Father. In baptism, we were in Christ, offered to the Father to become the people of God. We need the faith of Abraham in the resurrection of Christ to receive baptism and be part of the new covenant. We continue steadfast in this faith and offering ourselves in the liturgy when we say, Amin, Amin, your death, O Lord. Now, there's a Melchizedek. It's an enigma. I'll let you read that. What is the spiritual points in Abraham?
Okay, I wanna, you're gonna get mad at me, I couldn't find any answer in the document. But I came up with trusting God, obedience, and humility.
I agree. I don't know where it's gone. I had it here. The spiritual things from Abraham. First one I want to say, talk about, maybe it's in the second one. I would be very disappointed to know that I have a second document. First of all, what we call detachment. Yes. Detachment. What do you mean by detachment? How do you see detachment working in the life of Abraham?
To, like the commandment Jesus says, anyone who loves mother or father or children more than me.
Excellent. Excellent. Abraham, actually denounced, left his father, his family, his country, his identity to follow God. What else he did? Show detachment. Show me another detachment. There are multiple detachments. Offering Isaac, he's detached from his own son even. What else? Huh?
But
He died? No, something that he had to leave himself.
When Lot's shepherds were arguing over the.
Exactly. He was not attached to the land. He said, you pick. I really don't care which one you pick. I'm not attached to the land. What else? Ishmael and Hagar. He was not attached. There is a lot of detachment. It's in chapter 7. I see. Yes, good job, Sarah. You are with me actually on this. So detachment is shown as a very good point in the life of Abraham, life of faith, that he is ready to leave anything and everything for God. What else in this? In the second spiritual lesson, which is very obvious, is faith, trusting God. We always like to think he loved God, but before he loved God, he trusted God, trusting God. What else? Third one. Obedience. Yes, he was obedient for sure. What else we have in Abraham's story for spiritual guys?
Separation of our lives and children to God.
Yes, he consecrated himself. One of the things, obedience, Michael, is very good, but I want to add to this is in details. Obedience in details, meaning he would not be doing anything God said not to do, or he would not do or trust anything God did not promise. We talked about this at one point. He would not do presumption at all. He would say, God said this is what we're going to do. If God didn't say it, I'm not going to assume it or presume it. There's a lot of spiritual things in the Abraham life that actually we learn from it, good things that we have to be very careful and precise and what we call it details oriented, because God is not going to say anything and throw anything at us that is not intentional. All right, so that's Abraham. We're done with this. We're going to move next time to, please read. Maybe I should give you questions to think about it and read it carefully, because I don't think you're doing a good job reading here. I have to push for you to read.
We should read the document before going into class.
Please do. So I want to say something. This is I would ask you, is this important, as important, less important, or more important than schooling? Think about it.
This is of higher importance.
I hope so, but then it is in the mind of people who are really caring about God as God number one. if we talk about that, is you're gonna have to put things in priority. Yes, I know you have schooling and you're tight with time. How much time would it take to read the chapter? I mean, how many pages next chapter?
Okay. Just sitting down and just to go through.
It's chapter 7, the covenant with Abraham continued. And we're going to continue the book of Genesis. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five pages. Most of them are images. They're not much really. It might not take even 15 minutes to finish. I'm not giving you like scholarly articles with technical words and jargon that you wouldn't understand. I think it's very simple and it has the points you're going to be asked about. And study and answer the questions in the beginning of the chapter. Just use those questions. What's the meaning of Genesis 15, 13 to 16? Is there a spiritual analogy with Abraham calling? How did the children and the grandchildren of Abraham carried on the covenant? How we can understand the blessing right in Genesis 27? Why was Joseph both favored and hated? Tradition as covenant transmission. What is the significance of Jacob blessing of his children? Why was Judah assigned the royal role? The Christological typology in the covenant with Abraham. These are the questions, the points, and they're very small points, not big. You have 5 points. Each of them is like maybe a paragraph. So let's do that. Can we promise to do this? Like only 15 minutes to get done, but just read it because I think you're gonna miss a lot. You think you know something about it, but what you know is very primitive. Doesn't really do anything.
Did I make it? I don't. What curse?
It's usually self-inflicted. Nobody put it on you. Okay? All right, let's say our Father. Make us worthy, O Lord, to say thank you. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
The love of God the Father and grace of the only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you. Peace be with you.
Why do we put it on?
You're welcome.